If you like the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this. What are some stupid mentalities and mindsets that need to be changed? My grandparents aren't huge internet users, but they watch angry political talk shows like it's their lifeblood. At any given time they'll be watching some yelling guy ranting and raving, and if you ask to watch something else they're like, "But we're being educated." There's nothing wrong with yelling, and these guys may have a point in their rants, but it's often just people saying stuff without any evidence or further explanation. Just, "This politician eats baby koalas," and my grandparents are like, "Can't argue with that." That if you are a salaried employee and don't finish your work on time, you have to work unpaid overtime until it's complete, but if at another time, you complete all of your work early and there's literally nothing left to be done, you're not allowed to leave and instead have to sit at your desk doing nothing until you get in your 40 hours for the week. Employees should either be paid to have their ass in a seat for 40 hours, no more, no less, or be paid to complete a certain set of work regardless of whether it takes 30 hours or 50 hours. This BS double standard that you're paid to complete a task, not for a certain number of hours when there's extra work, but are paid to be there for a certain number of hours, not to complete a task then leave when there's less work needs to end. This mentality of older people in industries refusing to train or teach younger people, then complaining when younger people don't know what they're doing. I deal with this constantly at work. I'm a young guy in my industry and I am the exception to the norm. Most fire investigators are older guys. They constantly ask me why there aren't more young fire investigators, and I always tell them the same thing. Because you guys made it so difficult to get into the industry by requiring certifications that require 5 years experience to get, require 2 court testimonies to get, and so on, that no one can get into the industry. And then if someone does manage to break in, you guys treat them like crap, refuse to help them, and refuse to teach them what they need to know. There are a ton of critical industries in the United States that are going to have issues because the barriers to getting into the industry are so high, and those already in it are so elitist that there's going to be no one who knows what they are doing left to continue the work. It's a major problem. Teach young people. Bring them in. Show them the ways. Don't be a fucking dick. Butt in seat mentality at white-collar office-type jobs. If you do your job at a computer, there is no reason you shouldn't be able to work from home. Then attendance is not as important as just getting work done, and it eliminates the need for commuting, which eases traffic and pollution. Edit. Reading through the comments, I see there are a lot of people who say they would be less productive because if distractions or whatever, and to that I say I totally agree. I don't work in an office, my wife does, which is where this complaint came from, but if I did I would personally benefit from having oversight and lack of distractions. I think the main point I'm trying to make is that not that it should be for everyone, but that it should be a valid option for those that would benefit from it. I think even that much would significantly reduce traffic and facility costs. Also, I don't claim to know how policies like that are enforced, but I think if your manager is actually doing their job, then they should be able to tell who is actually getting work done and who is slacking off. That if a person doesn't immediately text you back, then they don't love you. I've seen people cry over, "Well, I texted him after 20 minutes of him texting me and it's been 21 minutes and he hasn't texted me back yet. We're breaking up." I've even had fallouts with friends because I had to stop texting to drive or go to class. I understand it's from anxiety. I have clinical anxiety and I understand to a point. But it is extremely anxiety causing to have to monitor all your text back times and frequency so the other person doesn't throw your entire relationship away over not texting back fast enough. It's ridiculous and I'm so tired of it. Let people have a life outside of you. Their life doesn't have to be 10,000% dedicated to you for them to truly love you. Sometimes the best thing you can have in a relationship, any relationship, is a mutual respect of privacy and time. The mindset that plastic waste and pollution is the consumer's responsibility to use paper bags, recycle, and be green. It is entirely futile when the majority of pollutants stem from industry and lack of regulation. The recycling plants can't process 90% of the waste. The products you buy are entirely made and packaged with plastic. It all is a ploy to get people to think it's up to them. Driving to the grocery store in your hybrid with reusable bags doesn't make a difference. Unregulated. Petroleum production, industrial emissions, manufacturing pollutants and waste. Each year the companies push further and further and cause more harm. It costs them money to dispose of waste, or switch packaging, or clean up their messes. It costs less money to lobby and rid of the laws requiring them to be clean. Your plastic grocery bag has nothing to fucking do with it. We need to be focused on the companies and not placing the blame on personal lifestyle choices. Sure, that needs to be addressed, but only after the major players have been stopped. Cancel culture. Yes, if someone has raped and assaulted people, I don't really want to hear from them again, though it seems some get a pass and others don't. See all of Hollywood applauding Polanski and then banging on about Me Too. But if someone said, gay, as an insult 20 years ago or tweeted that they voted for someone you dislike, no, I don't think their entire career and life needs to be destroyed. I am very left-wing, socially liberal, but my God, am I sick of hearing about how awful someone is because they used the wrong pronoun or didn't use the right word to describe a group of people. Optimization mentality leads to people unable to form opinions for themselves. Emo. Constantly checking restaurant reviews on Yelp. A good place to start looking at the menu, and maybe all the one-star reviews are a red flag. In general, you'll most likely have a good time at any restaurant. So many people leave bad reviews because they had one bad experience, and few people will leave a good review after a good experience. Amazon reviews. More than likely that thing you buy will be fine. People who go on general interest subreddits looking for a specific answer. Sometimes you have to just do things and learn and form an opinion for yourself. For me, it's the treating everything like a sports team versus sports team mentality. It just seems to come up everywhere. As someone who is studying a computer science degree, I see it a lot, whether it's iPhones versus Android phones, MacBooks versus laptops, Windows versus Mac OS versus Linux. It's only in recent times I've noticed it building exponentially outside of this space with political party versus political party, or in a more serious case, I know Twitter is a cesspool, so I shouldn't expect much of it with the Iran and USA tensions, people on Twitter calling for war because my country is better than your country, etc., like it was a Super Bowl. Emo. I wish this mindset would end because it just causes arguments that are completely unnecessary, it is toxic, and it removes any chance of civil discussion. Holocaust denial. People who call it the Holocaust, revisionist historians. We have evidence. We even have an original tape recording on a clunky 1941 tape recorder of Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS, boasting about it because he wanted a record to be kept of it. If this isn't enough for you, then let's dispense with courtesy. You can literally fuck right off before I hit you. Or, as I live in WV, you can fuck off my land before I can legally shoot in your general direction. Up to 12 millions of people were murdered in the most brutal fashion, murder in the first degree. While I'll gladly debate you if you say it was 9 million to 12 million who died, if more died in the actions than in the chambers, etc., if you dare to come to me and say it was unintentional, or there were no gas chambers, or it was only a few thousand, I'm going to hit you. I think this doomsday mindset that the world is going to shit and there's nothing to look forward to is bullshit. Climate change is bad, wages are stagnant, Wuhan coronavirus, etc. This doesn't mean you just give up and be miserable all the time. Bad shit happens to every generation, and guess what, we're still all here. I surround myself with people and information that point to happiness being a mindset, and not a result of your environment. If you are unhappy, you should figure out why, and take steps to change it. I'm also a firm believer that, I can't, is a bullshit excuse to just about everything. You can do whatever the fuck you want if you just try. That sons are a bigger blessing than daughters. My family doesn't have this mentality, but the culture I live in does. As a female with 2 sisters and 1 brother, it sucks when you're expected to spoon-feed every meal their food and spend all day cooking and cleaning. My family was once out doing some shopping and saw that an elderly man needed some help, so we went over to see what we could do. That old man was so grateful and started feeling sorry for my parents for not having more sons. He said he'd pray no family has to go through this pain. I was appalled and disgusted. The idea that our job should be our passion, and if we aren't pursuing our passion for currency, then it is pointless. Example. I decided to return to college at 28 for my bachelor's in education. So many people have said something or asked about teaching being my passion. And the truth is, it's not. I want to teach because I want a job that allows me time to travel, my true passion, and a job that is available to me pretty much anywhere in this world. When I respond to people telling them my true passion is traveling or some other things I'm passionate about, they all reply with something along the lines of, well, why don't you get a job in something involving _. The truth is, when many people turn their passion, hobby into a career, it burns them out. They may no longer find joy in what they loved for so long. The mentality of, I feel a certain way, therefore it's valid. What I mean is, we all feel certain emotions, and some more than others. With that comes the responsibility to look inward and consider if that feeling should be validated or not. An example. I feel jealous of my girlfriend's relationship with her work friend that is a guy. In this example, it's important that I communicate how I feel to my girlfriend. But I'd argue that is only the start. I need to validate this feeling first, and then bring my conclusion to her in our relationship. If I've told her I trust her, and even know her coworker well, I need to start putting that trust into practice and work at confidently concluding that I am capable of working through this and then communicate to her not only how I felt, but also how I validated that feeling. Maybe that doesn't make sense. But I just feel too often folks think because they feel a certain way that it's correct. Just because you or I feel a certain way doesn't mean we're right. This is going to get buried, but any mindset of, if what you're doing is making people angry, it means you're doing something right, or, when everyone in the world is telling you, no, that's when you need the strength to prove them wrong. Maybe on the rarest of occasions, you really are a trailblazer for good, but most of the time, if you're pissing everyone off or everyone is telling you to stop, chances are you're not doing something noble. I see it a fair bit on Reddit, where someone will say, the downvotes trolls angry comments just prove I'm right. You must carry the shame for what your ancestors did to my ancestors. You owe me something because of what your ancestors did to my ancestors. Human beings have been tribal since the beginning of time. I challenge anyone to follow their family lineage back 10 generations and find no one who has done something terrible to another human being for their own personal benefit. We can look backwards and find many reasons to be filled with hate and resentment. World history is full of conquest and pillage. Africans sold their own people into slavery. Native American tribes killed and savaged each other in conquest long before the white man arrived. There are very powerful people today whose relatives assisted the Nazi regime decades ago. We must evolve beyond the hatred and resentment and look forward rather than backwards. What matters is how much a society has evolved away from tribalism. In this modern time, we should judge a society by their current human rights and practices. How do they treat ethnic diversity now? How do they treat women now? How do they treat religious freedom now? Let's start looking at the present and forward instead of backwards. The cavalier mindset that people have regarding driving. You are in a 1-ton steel missile hurtling across the ground at a fast speed, often pointed directly at other people. Do not speed, do not tailgate, do not pass people recklessly, do not cut people off, do not go faster than you should for the conditions in which you're driving. None of it is worth increasing the chances that you'll die while doing the most dangerous thing that a lot of people do on a daily basis. Seriously, quit tailgating people. That's probably the worst thing a driver can do. You aren't getting anywhere any faster, you're just risking your life and the life of the guy in front of you because you're being impatient. All it takes is an animal running out in front of the person you're tailgating and them braking hard to end up with a collision. The victim mentality. People would be happier and feel more in control if they own everything. The Stoics of Greek, Roman eras had it figured out, in the sense that everything is about control. When something happens, ask yourself, what part of this do I control? A lot of times we can only control how we respond to an event, but even that is enough to create higher levels of tranquility and happiness. YouTube. Good, by Jock Willink for some inspiration on this one.